Music theory using Microsoft Excel. Scale degree chords conversion to an absolute mode chord numbering system. In other words, when you're talking to other musicians, they might be using like the less sophisticated scale degree numbering system, saying something like, we're going to play the 1, 4, 5 within a particular scale, but we want to be able to convert that to the more sophisticated modal center system so that we don't have to rename the points that we're going to build the scale on every time we're changing the modal center, similar to the Nashville music system, which, if looked at properly, is the more sophisticated system than the scale degree one. So that's what we'll do. Get ready and some coffee, because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you rock with Excel, and that's what we rock with Excel. Here we are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay, because we'll basically build this from a blank worksheet. But if you do have access, 4 tabs down below. Fretboard, example, practice, blank, the fretboard tab having a simulated fretboard that we will refer back to. The example tab having the end result, in essence, the answer key. The practice tab having pre-formatted cells so you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. The blank tab, the one we will be working in, is a blank worksheet. So if you don't have any of the other stuff, that's okay, because we'll basically build this from scratch, practicing both our Excel skills and music theory skills at the same time. Let's go to the fretboard tab to get an idea of what the problem is, what we're trying to be practicing here, that being communication. So whenever we're with bandmates or something like that, and they say, hey, we're going to be in a particular key, and we're going to play, say, these chords within a particular key, then we have a problem of knowing what set of notes that we are in, what the tonic is within those notes, and then once we know that, we need to know what they're talking about when they say a progression from one chord to another chord to another chord. Now, in a prior presentation, we talked about the first bit, which is to identify basically the collection of notes that we're in and the modal center within that collection of notes. Once we have that, then they might say something like we're playing the 1, 4, 5 from the perspective of the scale degree, meaning like if I'm playing in the key of A minor, then the 1, 4, 5, or they might be playing a 6, right? They get to the, or let's say it's a Mixolydian, 1, 4, 5, then from the perspective of the C, the 1, 4, 5 is the 5 for the G here, right? But if they're playing in Mixolydian, they're going to convert this to the 1. So what I'd like to do is to keep everything basically the same, which is in essence what's done in the Nashville music system, which I think is actually more sophisticated because it's better location finding on the fretboard, but it's not the standard convention, which means we have an unsophisticated, less thought out system, which is the standard. That's the problem. So I think we need a kind of shift in our mindset to realize, no, that system that's being the standard, just because it's the standard doesn't mean it's the better system. It's not. It's the worst system. So we'd like to be able to convert back and forth between them. It's also just a good exercise to do that. Let's go ahead and give a quick recap of our analogy so I can really kind of nail down why it's not the best system to do the scale degree system, and then why it's worthwhile to learn basically the Nashville number system and then be able to do the conversion for communication. So remember, our fretboard is going to be a map of the territory. We're going to compare it to the globe. There's only 4 continents on our map of the territory, those being the destination locations. There are actually 12 locations, but the non-destination locations are like the oceans. We go through them, we might touch on them, but we're going through them to get to the destination locations. We then imagine we're in a point in space, watching the globe of the fretboard spin around, imagining that we assign 12 points or degrees from our vision from space. That means when we basically say what point, when I try to get to America or to Europe on the fretboard, I need to know what the angle I should be looking at from space is. That's going to be analogous to the 12 keys. So A through G sharp, right? So if they say it's a C, then I'm going to say, okay, this is where I am on the planet. So I can see where to find it. Once I'm there, then I no longer want to use the letters. I want to then use the location finders, which are actually the modal centers, the Ionian, the Phrygian, the Mixolydian, or the Dorian, and so on and so forth, or an absolute mode numbering system like the Nashville number system, 1 through 7 would be the general idea. So that would be how we'd like to know the key. So if someone says we're in the key of A minor, then what are we going to want to do? We're going to want to say, okay, what's the related major? If it's this, and we'll find it, we'll figure out the C. We did that last time. And then if I know it's the C, I know the collection of notes is the pattern around the key of C. And then I know where all the relative positions are, not by note name, not by relative position number, but by absolute mode number, that being similar to the continents on the planet. They are unchanging as we rotate around the planet, as the planet shifts around, as our perspective from space changes as the planet rotates. It doesn't mean the names of the continents should change. The names of the continents are going to be the numbers 1 through 7, which tie out to basically the modes in essence. All right, so once we know what key we are in, then let's say we're in the key of A minor, right? So they're going to say we're in the key of A minor, and then from a scale degree standpoint, they're going to make the A minor the 1. Now remember, this 1 stands for the 1 note. It's a note number 1, but they're going to make the scale degree the 6 to a 1, which would be like saying, oh, look, the planet rotated in space, so now this was the United States, but now I'm going to call it Europe because now I'm looking at it from a different angle from space. We don't want to do that. It's still the same continent. It's the same. It's still 6. It's continent number 6, which is Aeolian. I don't want to change that just because I want that to be the center. So just because I live on this continent, I'm going to keep coming back to this continent, doesn't mean I want to rename the system based on that continent. I'm just going to say, hey, look, that's the modal center. 6 is the modal center. Now, we're going to get into chord building later. How do you build a chord? Again, I would suggest the best way to do it is to build it based on the absolute mode numbering system, and you just skip every other note in the scale degree. You take, in other words, modal whole steps. But we'll talk about that later. But the point is you want to build your chord off of that point. So we'll talk about how to build it later, but right now I want to be able to identify the point. So if someone says they're in the 1-4-5 in the minor key, then I've got to convert that to say, well, I want it to be the 6, right? I want this to be the 6, and then I've got to find the relative other notes compared to it. So that's going to be the question we have. And then if I'm communicating to others, I think the easiest way to communicate, because other people will understand the way we say it if we used a Nashville system, but other people won't understand it all the time if we say it the other way. In other words, if I was to say, hey, look, we're going to be playing in the collection of notes of the key of C major, and our modal center point will be the mode number 6, Aeolian, and which is an A, right? That means that everybody will know what that means. But if they say, and then I'm going to play, you know, a 6, you know, 2-3 or something from there, then everybody knows what that kind of means. But if I say I'm in the A minor, then it takes a conversion to get to the Nashville number system, right? So this, again, it's a more clear system to say it this way. All right, so let's go to the example. We'll just do some examples and just say, okay, what if we had the standard 1-4-5 in Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, and we're trying to go back and forth between what that means on a scale degree system versus a Nashville number or absolute modal numbering system. All right, let's go to the blank tab. We'll just build it as we go. It's just a little practice exercise. We'll practice building our table. Wait, let's lay down the formatting. Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm going to select the whole thing, right click, and format cells. And then I'm going to go to currency. And then, okay. Someone keeps on stealing my food over here. It's crazy. I'm going to put off the numbers here. They stole my cabbage. We got some people slinging stolen cabbage in the park over here. Home tab, font group, bold. All right, so we're gonna say this is gonna be Ionian, or the major scale or Ionian. So if we're on this side, I'm gonna say it's a scale degree, scale degrees, and then on this side I'm gonna have the absolute mode number system. So we're not going to change it on the absolute mode number system. We will change it on the scale degrees. So let's make this home tab font group. We're going to make this here and here. So if you need some cheap cabbage, apparently you can go to the park and they'd be slinging cabbage. They'd be slinging stolen cabbage in the park around here. Anyway, home tab font group. I'm going to make this black and then white, and we'll center it. All right, so we're going to say, so for the scale degrees, Ionian is the major scale. So notice we're going to base our absolute mode numbering system on the major scale. Therefore, there will be no difference between the two in this case. So I'm just going to say there's 1, 2, and let's copy that down to 7. And then let's do the same thing over here. 1, 2. We'll copy that down to 7. And then I'm going to say, okay, make this a little thinner. All right. So oftentimes, and then let's make this blue and bordered. Home tab font group, we'll make it border blue. Border blue. All right. And then we'll select, oftentimes the 1, 4, 5 is useful to think about because that is, you know, in a major key, those are the major chords. So it's kind of like the blues chord. Oftentimes they play the 1, 4, 5. So I'll make that our normal progression to kind of think about the conversion. So we'll say, someone's going to say, okay, look, we're in whatever key, let's say C major, it's the major key, and the tonic will be the major, because they're just going to say it's in the C major, and then we're going to play the 1, 4, 5. So it doesn't matter then if we're in a scale degree system or a modal center system, because our modal center numbering is based on the major scale, right? We're just not going to change it when we go to the other modes. So that would make it nice and easy. We're just going to say they're both the same, 1, 4, 5. And that's also why, by the way, if you think about it from a Nashville music number system, people will explain it to you as though it's a hack, right? They're going to say, hey, look, we're just gonna do everything as though it's in the major key, even though we're actually going to other keys. It's like a hidden secret kind of thing, which is cool because that makes you look like you're doing something that's breaking the rules. You're like the rebel in the school. You're like, I'm doing it the cool secret way. But it's not just the cool secret way. We need to change the paradigm here. It's the right way. It's the better way to do it. So we need to say, hey, look, we're using the antiquated scale degree system. I get it. That's kind of like the standard. It's kind of lame. It's old. We should be using a modal center degree, kind of like the Nashville number system people are doing because they know what they're doing over there, even though they say it like it's some kind of hack. That's the more sophisticated way to do it, right? So then we're going to go Ionian, Lydian, and then the Mixolydian. Okay, so now let's go to another one that's different. So I'm going to go, all right, let's make a skinny, and let's do the same thing. Let's copy from here to here, A to B. We'll copy that and paste that here. Boom. And I'm going to say that this is, well, let's call this Dorian. We'll just go through all of them. Dorian. And then what this needs to be, green. Get your head in the game. You've been smoking too much stolen cabbage you bought in the parking lot. Smoking too much stolen cabbage. Get your head in the game. All right. So it's gonna be a 1, 4. So if someone says, hey, look, we're in the 1, 4, 5 in the Dorian, right? So now we're in the Dorian, and let's just imagine that it's going to be the D Dorian. The D Dorian. So what do we have to do? We're going to have to figure out what the related major is, because they usually don't tell us that. We did that last time. So if I was on the fretboard over here, I'd say, okay, I'm on the D Dorian. I know that's the second modal note. It goes the 1 to the 2 is the Dorian. So I can go 1 modal half step back. So then I can say, okay, that's related to the C major. That will give me my collection of notes. We can also do it by looking at the formula or by intervals, but we talked about that last time. So then I'm gonna say over here, I'm gonna go, okay, well that makes sense, because now what they want to do is say we're playing in the collection of notes related to the C major, and then when they say we're playing the 1, 4, 5, notice what they've done. It's the 1 is no longer the Ionian. That's the problem. The 1 is now the Dorian. So now if I look at my fretboard, they've renamed it. So now it should be this same collection of notes hasn't changed, but now they've said that the name of the continent here, they changed it to this being the 1. So we don't want to do that on the fretboard because that's really going to mess you up to learn the entire fretboard when you give it 7 names. So what I would rather do is say, okay, I'm going to convert it. They're using the antiquated lame system, so I'm going to convert it, right? So how do we convert it? Well, then this 1, if it's the Dorian, I know that's the 2, right? Because the Dorian is the 2. So whatever the center, the focal center point is of what you're playing, then they're going to make that the 1, and we will just then assign it to whatever it is from the absolute modal numbering system. And then I think the easiest way to count it up is to say it's the 1, 4, 5. So how many modal half steps is that? It's going to be, if you're on the 1, it's 1, 2, 3, right? Or 4 minus 1, it's 3 steps up. So if we start on the 2, then we're just going to say 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 plus 2 modal half steps. So we're going to say then it's going to go to the 5 and then to the 6. So this one down here, how far is that? Well, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 modal half steps. So if I start on the 2 plus 4 modal half steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Now we could convert each of them. So you might say, well, the Dorian, I need to make it the 1. How am I going to make it the 1? This is the 1. And now the Dorian is now the 1, so I could say it's adding 1 to it to get to the Dorian. So if I add 1 to here, to the numbering system, then the 4, I'm going to do the same thing, add 1 to it, and the 5, I'm going to add 1 to it. That's another way that you can kind of visualize it. So now we're going to be playing, in our eyes, I'm going to be playing the 2, 5, 6. The 2 is the Dorian, the 5 is the Mixolydian, and then the 6 is the Aeolian. So notice that's kind of a problem, right? Because if I'm in Dorian, the 1, 4, 5 often means we're playing like the same major, major, major type chord or minor, minor, minor if you're in the major or minor. But if you're in any other mode, like the Dorian, you say 1, 4, 5, and your mind is automatically going to think, oh, that should be all the same, major or minor. But the Dorian, although it's a minor mode, doesn't have the same numbering system if you make it the 1, right? So, but if I know if I convert it, then I know I'm on the 2, 5, 6. So if I build my chords off of the 2, 5, 6, I've already memorized that numbering system, whether it's just with scale degrees using the Roman numeral system, or whether it's knowing that the modes themselves, which is the more sophisticated way to do it, the modes themselves are major and minor, and I know all the intervals for all the modes. So I know the modes that are major and minor modes that build major and minor chords. We'll talk more about that later, but I also know the differences between the intervals if you build longer, more complex chords. All right, so that's going to be the idea. So we can put the rest in here. This is going to be 3, 4, 6, 7, 7, and then 8. Now you could go the other way and say what if we're talking to somebody and we're like, okay, look, we're playing in the collection of notes of the key of C, and then we're playing around the modal center of the Dorian, and then we're going to be playing the chords of the 2, 5, 6. They will probably know what you're talking about because they know the numbering system related to the key of C. That's why it always works if you say it this way. It's actually better because you can communicate with more people. But let's just say we had to convert it because they want to see it in terms of a 1, 4, 5, in terms of the key of the Dorian. So we're going to say, okay, well that means that if I'm starting on the 2, I'm just going to make it the 1. So the D would be the D. I'm Dorian, but now I'm going to make it back to the 1, and then I can do the same thing. So if it was 2, what are the modal half steps up? 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 half steps up, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, right? Or I can say that if I had to bring the 2 down by 1, then I'd have to bring the 5 down by 1 to the 4, the 6 down by 1 to get to the 5. All right, let's do it another 2, 3. Let's do 3. And there's 5, 6, 7. Let's go copy this, go from the skinny on over, copy and paste this again, and we'll do it again. Let's try the Phrygian. Phrygian, and we're just gonna make it easy and say it's gonna be the E Phrygian, right? And so we know what that's gonna be. So I'm gonna hit the drop down. Why is this not showing here? I need my, always show the ribbon. Always show the ribbon. I don't like to have to, okay. So then, okay. So let's say we do the same thing. So now somebody's like, okay, we're in E Phrygian. So we're like, okay, E Phrygian. So they're going to make me figure out the modal center. So if I go to the fretboard, I could say, well, there's like an E right here. And I know that the E is the third in my mode numbering system. So that means to get back to the related major, I have to go back 2 modal half steps. And if I know my shape, I can go back and say, okay, it's in the collection of note of C major, and we're going to be having the modal center point of the Phrygian, right? And so, which is going to be absolute mode number 3. So if I go back on over here, it's like, okay, I found the center point. I found the collection of notes. That's great. And then they say, okay, now we're going to play the 1-4-5 in the Phrygian, right? And we're like, the 1-4-5. So now they made the E the 1. So I build off the E to make the 1 chord. What would that be for my numbering system? Well, I know the Phrygian is the 3. So I need to make the 1 the 3. And then we know that the distance between the 1-4-5 is how many modal half steps? 1, 2, 3s to get there. So if I start on the 3, it's going to be 3 plus 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is obviously going to be the 6, and then the next one up will be the 7. So if it's the 1-4-5, 1 modal half step up from there. Or I can say that I know that if it's the 1, I need to go 2 numbers up to get to the Phrygian. That means any other chord, I would do the same thing. So if it was the 4, I'm going to go 2 numbers up to get to the 6. The 5 is 2 numbers up to get to the 7. So once again, when they say the 1-4-5, usually that would be the 3 majors, which would be Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian. But no, we're on the Phrygian, which is the 3, which is a minor. And then the 6 is the Aeolian. And then the 7 is the Locrian, which is crazy, right? So, but that might lead back, well, it should lead to the 1, but we won't get into that right now. So this is going to be 4, 5, 7, back to 1, and then 2. Let's make this the 1. Now, if I went the other way, like I'm saying, okay, now I'm going to talk to somebody with the more sophisticated modal system. And again, notice how someone else will understand this, even if they use scale degrees, right? Because you're like, okay, look, we're in the collection of notes of the C major, but we're going to have the modal center point of the E, which is the Phrygian. And that's going to be our modal center point. I'm going to name the chords based on the absolute mode system of the major, which everybody knows. And that progression is going to be the 3, 6, 7. 3, 6, 7. The 3 is the modal center point. See, everybody will know what that is, even if they're traditionally used the scale degrees, because everybody uses the scale degrees off of the major key, right? It makes more sense because people already know that. But let's say we have to convert it. We're like, okay, well, that means the 3, they got to convert that to the 1. So now we have the 1, and so we still have the distance 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's how many half steps, modal half steps? 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. So it would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Or if I had to take it down by 2 to get to the 1, the 6 would have to go down by 2 to 4, 7 down by 2 to 5. So it'll get a little bit more confusing than this if we have to go around the circle, which we'll see shortly. But let's do another one, 6, and then this is 7. Let's copy the skinny on over again. Copy the skinny on over. I have to give a warning. Do not buy stolen cabbage in the park from people. It's not safe, man. People be smoking stolen cabbage they bought from slingers of stolen cabbage in the parking lot, man. I'm going to say this is going to be Lydian F. Lydian F. Don't support the stolen cabbage slingers. That's what I say. Hometown font group. Let's make this green. All right. So we'll do this again. So we've got the 1-4-5. So now someone's like, okay, now we're going to be in the 1-4-5 of F Lydian. So we're like, okay, what's the modal center? Let's go to the fretboard. We're going to say, all right, there's an F. So we're going to say, where's an F? Here's an F. And the F is the 4th. So I could go up or backwards to get back to the C. So I know it's the 4th. So that means I'd have to go 3 modal half steps back. So here's 1, 2, 3. And I'm saying, okay, so now I'm in the key of C. My modal center point is the 4 or Lydian. Let's go back on over to the blank one. So I can say, all right, I know that I'm on the 4 here. is going to be my point. So then if they're saying it's the 1 4 5, so how many half steps is that? 1 2, it's 1 2 3 modal half steps. So if I'm on the 4 plus 3, 4 5 6 7. So it'd be the 7. This would be the 8 then, but there's only 7 continents, right? So that means it's going to go around in a circle to 1. So that would mean the 1 4 5 Lydian would convert to a 4 7 1 Lydian, Locrian, and the Ionian. And then we're going to say, all right, so then this will be 5 6 7 1 2 3. And then if I went the other way, so if I was telling someone, hey, look, it would be easy for them to understand. I'm just going to say, hey, look, we're going to be playing in the collection of notes related to the key of C major, and we're going to be playing around the Lydian node, which is the node number 4, F Lydian. And again, everybody would know, and we're going to be playing the chords of a 4 7 1 based on the Nashville number system, or the absolute chord numbers based on the major scale, which everybody knows. So, right? So again, even if you're using the scale degree system as your primary system, everybody remembered the C relative positions already. And then they have to figure out all of the other relative positions as they rotate them around in their mind when you're playing the 7 different scale degrees, which most people don't know, even if they're using the scale degree system. So notice, again, if you're communicating this way, you can communicate to anyone, all right? But if you're communicating the other way, you can't communicate to people. Most people might not be using a modal system, but you can't communicate to people that don't know the different mode numbering systems, right? But they do. But if you tell it to them this way, then they will know it. And that's why it's presented as a hack, right? That's why the Nashville music guys, well, it's a hack because people still know this, even if they haven't remembered all their scale degrees. But that's not the point. You don't need the scale degree. Looking at it that way is not proper. It's like you don't need to do. That's not the way to do it. That's not the best way to do it. That's the point. We need a shift in our thinking on that. So we have a 4, and then how many half steps up? 5 6 7. So that would be 1 2 3 4. Or I can say if it's 4, it's going down by 3. So the 7 would go down by 3. 7 6 5 4. And then the 1 would go down by 3, which would be from the 1 around the horn to 7 6 5. So it's a little bit difficult to go around the circle. So we're going to say this is 2, this is going to be 3, this is going to be 4 and 5. All right, let's do it. Let's do it again. Otra vez. Let's copy the skinny. I'm going to copy the skinny to the K, copy and paste that in the L. And this is going to be the Mixolydian. Mixolydian. I think I spelled that right. And then we're just going to make it the G. And we'll do this again. Let's make it blue this time for every other color being different. So we'll make it that. All right. So if they say we're playing 1 4 5 Mixolydian G Mixolydian. So we're like, okay, if I go to the fretboard, if I say, okay, here's a G, now I know that's the 5th in our numbering system. So it's possibly easier to go forward to get to the related major, so I know my collection of notes. So I could say 5 6 7 and then 1. So it's 3 steps forward, 3 modal half steps. So 1 2 3 gets me to the Ionian. So I could say, okay, it's the C major collection of notes that's going to be focused around the modal center point of the 5th or Mixolydian, right? And then I can go back on over here and say, okay, if they're playing the 1 4 5, I'm going to say that's going to be the 5 for me. That's what Mixolydian is. And then how many steps up is it? It's 1 2 3 half steps. So if I go 5 6 7, it would be 8, but we go around to 1, or 8 minus 7 gets me to 1, and that means this is going to be the 2. Or 1 plus 4 gets me to 5. Therefore, if I'm on the 4, 4 plus 4 gets me to 8, minus 7, because there's only 7, it gets me to the 1. 5 plus 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, minus 7 gets me to the 2. So we get, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be the sequence that we have here. And if I went the other way, like if I told someone, then anyone would understand. We'd say, okay, look, we're on the collection of notes related to the C major, and we're going to be playing around the 5th modal center point, the Mixolydian node, which is a G note. So again, anybody that's even using the scale degree system already knows that they're gonna know that, even if they don't know this terminology of a modal center or whatever. It just makes sense because it's just as though you're playing in the key of C, which is what, even though your center point will now be the 5, right? Your center point we're playing the key of C, but the center point will be the 5. That's how the kind of the cheat way, the cool way to say it would be. So it sounds like a cheat code, but again, it's not a cheat code. It's actually a better way to say it. So we're gonna say this is the 1, and then I could say 5, 6, 7, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, or 5 minus 4 gets me to the 1, which means 1 minus 4 gets me to -3, plus 7 gets me to the 4, right? And so let's do this a little bit faster. We're running long on time. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. And so we'll copy this over again, otra vez. Wait, that's the space bar. You hit the space bar, not the copy button. You've been smoking too much stolen cabbage from slingers of stolen cabbage in the park, man. I tell you, don't lay off the stolen cabbage. Home tab, font group. Let's make this green. And then we're going to say this is going to be Aeolian. Aeolian. And we'll make it easy with the A. Aeolian. All right, so we're in the 1, 4, 5 Aeolian. So we can say, okay, so let's go to the fretboard and say now they're in the Aeolian, A or minor. They're going to say minor, not Aeolian. A minor. So what's going to be the related major collection of notes? Well, I know that's the 6. So I need to go up to 6, 7, and then back to 1. 2 modal half steps up. If I know my shape, I can go up. Again, we can do it other ways than knowing your shape. But I'm just going to do this time. We did that last presentation. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm in the C major collection of notes, and I'm going to be centered around what I would call absolute mode number 6, Aeolian, the Aeolian. All right, and then they say we're playing the 1, 4, 5. Now, the cool thing about the 1, 4, 5, the way it happens to work out if you use scale degrees, is that the 1, 4, 5 still turns out to be all of like the minors. So on the major side, the 1, 4, 5 are all the major chords, and on the minor side, the 1, 4, 5 are all the minors. That's cool for like bluesy stuff because it's nice and simple, but it doesn't work on all the other modes. So it's still not the best system to use. And then the 2, 3, and 6 is kind of messy to figure out where the majors are because the diminished is now the 2. That's kind of weird. That's not the same. That's not parallel to the major. But it's kind of cool that the 1, 4, 5 is still the minors if you use a scale degree system. But we're going to convert it, and we're going to say that we're going to start on the 6 because the minor or Aeolian is the 6. If they play the 1, 4, 5, it's going to be how many half steps, modal half steps? 1, 2, 3 up. So 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, and then there's only 7, so it's going to go back to 1 and 2. So 6, 2, 3 would be it. Or you can say if it's going from 1 up by 5 to get to 6, meaning that means the next one would be 4 up by 5 would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minus 7 would get me to 2, right? And so we can do it that way. So 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now if I'm going the other way, it would be easy because I could just say, hey, look, we're playing in the collection of notes related to the C major, and we're going to be playing around the modal center point of the 6, which is the Aeolian. And then we're going to be playing the 6, 2, 3. 6, 2, 3 will be the way we're going to be playing it, right? And they'll all know that because they already know the scale degrees with relation to the major key. So you're basically saying we're going to play it like it's in the major numbering system, Nashville numbering system, 6, 2, 3, right? 6 is going to be the center point. All right, but if we need to convert it, I'm going to make the 6 the 1, and then if it was 6, and I have to go around to get to the 2, I have to go around the circle, 6, 7, 1, 2. So it's 3 notes away. It gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5. Or 6 minus 5 gets me to 1. So 2 minus 5 gets me to a -3 plus 7 gets me to 4. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do one more for the Locrian. Nobody plays in Locrian, but that's okay. If they're smoking too much stolen cabbage they bought from the stolen cabbage slinger in the park, they might start playing crazy and Locrian. They're going loco, and they're playing in Locrian. We're like, okay, maybe they got something. Maybe they're on to something. Maybe the stolen cabbage put them on the right track. This is going to be a B. You just don't know what you're talking about because you're not in the loop on how the stolen cabbage tells you the song key that we need to be in. All right, we're going to go home tab font group. Let's make this blue. So now we're in the 145 of the Locrian. All right, so then if someone says that, I'm going to go over here and say, that's unusual. Let's see what that means. Well, I'm on the B. Where's the related major? Well, the Locrian is the 7, so it's going to be one modal half step up. So like, okay, I'm in the key of C again, right? We made them all in the key of C, right? So it's in the key of C, but we're going to be going around the 7. So I'm going to make this the 7, and then say now it's on the 145. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 modal half steps up. 7 goes around to 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be the 7, 3, and 4 would be the idea. Other way we can do it is 7, I have to go down by 6 to get to the 1. So if I'm on, 1, I have to go up by 6 to get to 7. So 4, I have to go up by 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, minus only 7 scale degrees. 10 minus 7 is going to give me the 3. Right, and so it's going to be that. So 7, let's make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I'm going the other way, we're like, okay, if I was talking to someone, we could say, all right, we're playing in Locrian. The guy that's been smoking the stolen cabbage from that stolen cabbage slinger in the park is telling me they want to play Locrian. Okay, so we're going to say, hey, look, we're in the collection of notes that is the C major, and we're going to be playing around the 7th, which is the Locrian mode. We're going to be playing the progression 734, which people will know because they know this numbering system for the major key. But if we want to convert it, we'd say the 7 is going to now be the 1, and it goes 7 around, so it's going to go up to the 1 because it goes around the circle. 7, 8 is now the 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 3 steps up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Or in other words, 7 minus 1, or 7 to get down to 1 is subtracting 6. 3 minus 6 is going to be negative 3 plus 7 gets me to 4, right? So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so that's good. And so it's pretty easy conversion to go back and forth. Again, if you say it the way we're talking about, I think other people will know. And when people say in scale degree, it's pretty easy to convert. As long as you lay off smoking that stolen cabbage. Lay off the stolen cabbage. Just leave that guy alone. Leave that guy alone. I wouldn't go, just don't go near him, man. Just, he's crazy. The guy's crazy. He's slinging out cabbage out there. Just cross the sidewalk. Cross the sidewalk. All right.